What's up, guys? Julian here. Today I'm going to be talking to you about not just why you should be using more samples, but also why using samples doesn't matter, and the idea that it's cheating or something like that is an outdated argument. Now, to go along this video, I've got my website right at the top of the description. If you enjoy my videos, if I've helped you guys out, definitely go grab some stuff there. Go check out the website. There's a ton of really awesome resources for producers to immediately take their tracks to the next level today. So go to my website, check it out while you're on this video. Thank you so much for the support, guys. Every little bit helps. And let's dive into the video. So, the first reason why you need to stop caring about all this stuff is, I think there's a certain idea around being original and around like doing stuff that is only using like content only generated by you, right? Like you made this kick in Serum or whatever it is, you recorded the kick yourself. But the truth is, dude, no idea is original. You're making house and techno, like literally like all of that music, you're kind of making something similar to what's already out there. I mean, none of us invented 4 on the floor, right? Like you can't say like, oh yeah, I invented like, no, dude, like, so why would you need to invent a new kick sample or a new snare or something like that? I think that's the first thing is like, keep in mind, we're all kind of on borrowed time here a little bit with these genres just being something that a lot of people have done and not really being something brand new, right? Kind of more so like house music or techno today is taking stuff from the past and updating it and doing a modern, more powerful version of it with a different flair, right? So why are we going to say, if we're not going to literally go from the ground up, making our own genre and all that, why are you going to now all of a sudden this very, very tiny detail of like your kick sample, all of a sudden you got to make that from scratch? Like it just doesn't make sense to me. So that's the first thing. No idea is original. Now if you're trying to make some weird out there music that's its own thing, then maybe, yeah, make your own samples. But dude, like if you're making a house or a techno track or really anything that there is similar music to it already out, again, no idea is original. So if you're not focusing on this big overall thing of trying to make a whole new genre, why are you going to focus a lot of attention into this one tiny detail? And that is bringing me to my next point here, which is essentially to go and try to, make all these samples from scratch and synthesize a kick, or maybe, put together, 10 different vinyl kick samples to try to make one, modern house kick or something like that, is, it's kind of putting a disproportionate amount of time onto something that really doesn't make that much of a difference, right? Like, a kick is a kick. Not all kicks are equal. Obviously, there's bad kicks and there's good kicks. But a good kick is a good kick. It would be like if you were making, if you were a chef, right? And you were trying to make, a really good steak. And you put a whole ton of your budget into, getting the world's finest salt. You literally just got the greatest salt you could get out there. Woohoo, super nice salt. And then you have, this super cheap steak. It's nobody's going to come to your restaurant and be like, oh my God, man, the steak, man, the salt on the steak was so good. No, you have to have a good steak too. And if you put a disproportionate amount of time into using the best salt, well, you're going to get these cheap steaks over here. And then you're going to be going, well, what? I had the best salt. It's so good. Why don't people like my steak? Well, you don't have a good steak, right? And I think the steak here would be, the overall track. And the salt would be, putting a lot of effort into just the salt will be putting a lot of effort into just the kick, It's and I'm not saying that you shouldn't put any effort into the kick. I'm saying it shouldn't be so disproportionate. It shouldn't be so, oh yeah, I made all my own samples in Serum, but then the actual MIDI that's being played sucks, It's that kind of thing. I think it's putting all this effort into this thing that really doesn't matter that much and then missing the things that really do matter. Again, going back to the example before, rather than using the best salt and the worst steak, you should try to get the best salt with the best steak and in a timely manner where you're spending an equal amount of time on things and time on things that actually really matter. So that's the next point there, is that I think it's just putting a disproportionate amount of time into things that don't need that much time, and ultimately it's just going to lead to you being more frustrated. And that is actually the next point here too, is you're watching this video, obviously what you're doing is not just blowing you away with the best ever results. And I'm not saying maybe you're getting good results doing something, but obviously you're watching this video for the purpose of you're trying to figure out what it is that you don't know that I can ideally give you or show you. And I'm telling you it right now. You actually do know it. You're just not doing it. Like, I think, you know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, right? So if you're constantly going and trying to synthesize your own drums, or maybe, you know, I'm just using that example, but it could be anything in terms of like just trying too much on things that don't matter when it comes to like using samples in your tracks. You know, if you just keep doing that and going, oh yeah, like I used my kick method where I make there's the bass and then I have the transient and then there's the tail. Oh, and I put so much time into it. Why don't they want my track? Well, it's like, dude, don't every single time you open up the project file keep doing that same kick method, right? Like, obviously that's not working for you. So that is something too, is like, I think, you know, a lot of this just comes down to patterns of your mind, dude. Like, if you get really, really wrapped up in that one way of making tracks, or maybe not even one way of making tracks, but one idea of what the track should be or how it should be, you know, if you saw somebody running into a brick wall over and over again, and they were like, dude, what kind of advice do you think I should do? Like, obviously this isn't working. Like, you're not going to tell them keep running into the brick wall, right? So you need to do that for yourself too. You need to say like, okay, you need to honestly look at yourself. Like, I think a lot of this is not even just like, yeah, sure, like, you could figure out the perfect, oh, I put this much saturation on the transient and the kick, and then I have 4 layers for the tail, and it's like, yeah, but at the end of the day, like, you know, it's not even about that. It's literally just about, like, getting yourself out of that pattern and trying to do something new and seeing what's going to work, you know. That was the thing for me, too, guys. Like, you know, what I do on this YouTube channel, like, I honestly could have done within, like, not very much time of producing. But I wasted a lot of time doing the stuff that I'm telling you not to do here. Like, I tried to do all this stuff back in the day, and, like, yeah, I'm telling you now, having been on the other side of the journey, like, dude, just use a kick sample. Use a kick sample from a track or something, like, and if that's going to get you to stop running into that brick wall of, like, constantly making tracks and not really being happy with them or not getting where you want to, honestly, I think that's better than doing your magical super kick method. So that's the next point, or that's the last point, and then the last point here that I want to make here is that samples are better than ever. You know, 10 years ago, when people started hating on using samples, like when that kind of like cult started online, you know, the samples actually were like not very good. And I know because I was listening to sample packs back then, and they were just not good at all. Like when people started hating on like the idea of like a construction kit, like if back then they had construction kits, like a construction kit being like a sample pack where it's got the whole loops for like a whole song or a whole little like 8-bar loop, like every individual layer, not just like drums or something like that. You know, if they had really good ones like what they have now, or like what I've been trying to create recently, if they had that back then, like they wouldn't have been hating on that stuff. Like the reason why people started hating on using samples and started saying all that is because they actually were garbage at that time. And, you know, it's understandable because it was, at that time, I think it was just a big leap just to be able to have samples, right? Like, just to have that stuff. But obviously then we had to have maybe a few years, and then around like 2015 or so, I think is when the revolution kind of happened, when I noticed samples like actually starting to become good quality, like, and not just samples that you sample from a track, but like samples and sample packs, all that kind of stuff. So